embedding entrepreneurship pretty much across all the dimensions of work that the university would do. Education, research, valorization, management will not be possible without having spanning boundaries agents, both in the professional staff roles or also having those leaders in place, but also those academics and students who go a little bit beyond traditional teaching and learning.
Hello and welcome to the Strategic Partnerships podcast series. My name is Madeline Arkins. I'm a Research Project Officer at UIN and your host for today. Join us in the latest episode featuring our colleague Balzhan Orazbayeva, Manager of Strategic Initiatives at UIN, where we discuss boundary spanning, breaking down silos and connecting networks for greater collaboration across academia and industry. Hear how universities can better support these boundary spanning agents, learn what it takes to master the skills of university business collaboration, and become a champion of boundary spanning yourself. Hope you enjoy our discussion. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with my colleague, Dr. Balzhan Orazbayeva, on this topic that I'm sure is all very relevant to each of you. I think university business collaboration has been shown to have such immense potential, particularly in the last decade or so, in terms of solving or contributing to solving societal challenges, and therefore the role of people who can bridge that gap between academia and industry and make that collaboration possible becomes all the more vital and important to understand. And because these folks are at the forefront of collaboration, it's really valuable to understand the skills that empower them to break down those silos. And I hope that our conversation today will go into more of the nuances of their skill set, as well as offer a glimpse into the kind of training offerings that UIN, as well as the research projects that we do in this arena. Today, as I said, I'm joined by my lovely colleague, Balzhan. Balzhan is Manager of Strategic Initiatives at UIN. And within this role, she delivers and designs innovative training and consultancy models to develop more engaged and entrepreneurial universities. She also holds a doctoral degree from Free University Amsterdam, where she focused on the engagement of academics and businesses in education-driven university business collaboration. And she is also the co-editor of the Future of Universities Thought Book series. Welcome, Balzhan. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Maddie. Very much looking forward to having this important conversation.
Me too. Balzhan, maybe just to start us off for the uninitiated, what is boundary spanning and where did that term come from? Why is this important?
Most certainly, it is the term that is being utilized these days quite heavily, and we see that happening across different national contexts, but also industry contexts. But initially, it originated from social sciences research and organizational psychology most, and boundary spanning is the term that describes individuals within an innovation ecosystem who have or adopt the role of linking organizations' internal networks with external sources of information. So basically, it's all about breaking down the silos, connecting, bridging, all those synonyms that we can use. And the concept of the boundary spanning role has been popular throughout academic research into innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems within over, I would say, close to 50,000 peer-reviewed articles would reference that term. And that happened ever since, I would say, 50s approximately. So we can see that the term has been gaining a lot of traction. And there is a reason for that. And I think you covered it pretty nicely in your introduction by saying that these kind of folks you can find across different organizational contexts. And it's really about empowering individuals and making sure that those people who are at the forefront of innovation actually have all those necessary skills. And I hope to also touch upon this today in our short conversation. But before we will do that, maybe I will go back to the importance that you have also raised in the context of higher education specifically. Of course, it has long been recognized that in Europe, but also outside Europe, universities have an important leadership and connecting role within their regional innovation ecosystems. The policy context in Europe specifically increasingly emphasizes the role and importance of universities as a driver of regional growth and development via fostering partnerships amongst different types of stakeholders. So it's not only university business collaboration, but it's also generally external engagement in most broad sense. So how can universities be better connected to their external environment, societal stakeholders, governmental stakeholders, industry stakeholders. And industry, for example, that would also be connected to the term open innovation, for example, open innovation processes that are also becoming more widely accepted, inducing an increased collaboration between and among companies, again, with different types of individual organizations, but also universities, startups, and so on and so forth. And the involvement of boundary spanners in UBC, or external engagement quite generally, is considered fundamental, as they can create support for the development of mutually beneficial strategic university business society partnerships. And it was highlighted that the significance of individuals in this role specifically is quite high, and we can indeed call them as shapers of those innovation ecosystems.
Yeah, that historical context, I think, is really useful. And even though institutions and large multinational companies, maybe they have obviously the resources to innovate at such a large scale, but it's easy to forget that it's these individuals with this specific skill set that really drives this forward. Speaking of skill set, who are boundary spanners? What are their profiles? What skills do I need in my toolkit to call myself a boundary spanning agent?
That's a very good question. And I guess I would much rather talk about boundary spanners or boundary spanning agents in more so higher education context. And we define them as individuals known for their success and capabilities in breaking down the silos, both among internal units. So let's say if you're working within the university, you're able to break the barriers and also connect individual departments, academics within the institution, but also in their external engagement for collaborative innovation, whether it is in research and entrepreneurship, or maybe also in education. And according to also European Commission, because that is also the term that we have seen being utilized in the policy context as well, boundary spanners draw upon a deep understanding of both HEI ecosystem, but also the industry reality. So in terms of knowledge or skills, it's very important to have sort of the understanding of what is going on within your organization, have a deep understanding of what your potential partner would want or need, but also how the organizational structures would work within those organizations. And what we have done at UIN, because we've been very much willing to not only bring this term forward, but also really appreciate those individuals who are at the forefront of collaboration and really recognize them for the wonderful work that they would do, because you can say that they're hidden champions, because their role is to really facilitate. And often it's the case that all the people who support or enable or empower, they take a more so background role, though they're very fundamental and important. So with this motivation and with the actual mission and vision that UIN has, we really wanted to explore what are the actual skills, knowledge, and attitudes a boundary spanner might need, so that then also we can take all possible actions, either through consultancy or training, in supporting those individuals and networks of individuals in the work that they do. And that basically resulted in a large-scale initiative that UIN has been running in collaboration with wonderful partners as part of Spanning Boundaries project funded by the European Commission, where we've been able to actually do a large-scale research that would include not only qualitative research literature review, but we also were able to survey universities as well as industry stakeholders and experts in the field, trying to understand what kind of skills those individuals would actually need. And that has resulted on numerous steps of the analysis that we have done. And in a set of, we call them masteries of a boundary spanning agent. So what is it that you would need to improve on if you would like to become a very effective boundary spanning agent? And basically, if we'll take a look at that, it's a set of very key transversal areas of skills, knowledge, and competencies. And one would refer, for example, to strategy and vision. So whenever you're working with an external partner, or you're trying to empower someone to become one in terms of partnering, but also building those more so, I would say, multi-stakeholder collaborations as well. So we're not only talking about one-on-one collaboration. It's very important to have this ability to create this vision and strategy. Then we also talk about the mastery of collaboration. So actually knowing who to approach, how to value knowledge, how to exploit one existing networks, for example. Another thing that we've been also seeing overwhelmingly important is a mastery of entrepreneurial thinking and acting. So knowing how to identify and leverage opportunities, anticipating changes in the environment, thinking creatively and originally. Obviously, when we talk about partnerships and when we talk about building relationships, it's very important to have a partner understanding, which is another set of skills. And this is where, when we say that this champion would need to have the ability to know the aims and priorities of the collaboration partner, understand the needs and wants, be able to translate the languages, the cultures between different partners. And another transversal skill set would refer to negotiation. Well, all human beings, we still need to be able to make sure that we can negotiate trade-offs and issues between collaboration partners, make sure that we're aligned from the beginning, or even if not, that we're able to find a common ground. Talking about more, let's say, hard skills or hard knowledge, also very important in higher education setting to still understand intricacies of knowledge transfer and engagement processes quite generally. So talking about IP regulations, for example, scientific and R&D processes, depending on what is it that you're currently working on or what type of collaboration or valorization you're supporting, some of the base knowledge of those areas would be extremely important. And this is what we call the Spanning Boundaries Skills Framework. And having this as a base, we were able to develop and test already a number of times training programs, both as part of the Spanning Boundaries projects, where we were able to work with close to 10 national contexts and working with higher education institutions, SMEs, companies as well, trying to see how exactly can we train them on spanning boundaries, skills and competencies. But this is also what then UIN has taken as a base to develop our own training program. And as straightforward as it is, UBC Skills program actually aims at empowering those individuals that are looking to break down the silos between academia and business.
Yeah, wow. It is such a diverse skill set, both from what seems like almost quite personal traits and then to the hard skills that you mentioned. I also find it interesting because I think that when you traditionally think of someone who bridges the gap, you automatically go to external between academia and industry, but realize there are so many other gaps within an institution itself, even within the same disciplines, which is why these kind of skills are so necessary. My next question, how do you train such a wide variety of skills? Are there any sort of methods or models that you find that you use when you conduct the training program that really facilitate this kind of learning outcome?
That's a very good question, because obviously the assumption that we have is that those individuals who work in the field, they will already be very knowledgeable. So the idea is not to present to them with some just base understanding or base knowledge. No, it's really about relying on collective wisdom that you would have in a training room, whether it is on-site or online, because all those individuals, whether they are in the enabling roles, let's say they are strategic partnership officers or their innovation officers or research services officers within the universities, or their academics themselves who are interested in engaging more with industry or societal stakeholders. Same applies to industry as well. So those individuals who will be working on research and development and innovation, and they're looking to build more connection with academia. So the idea would be to provide all those necessary skills. The boundary spanning masteries would be basically embedded into pretty much all of the workshops that we will be running. And we have built a learning journey that will be focusing more so on the foundations of university business society collaboration, where we try to explore the ecosystem behind it, what are the barriers and drivers supporting mechanisms of such collaboration, heavily relying on already existing best practices that UIN has in its disposal that we've been collecting over the years, also through our research and the consultancy work that we do, but also understanding how can we scale those collaborations. So it's not only how to build them, but it's also how to manage partnerships, how to identify the priorities for further development, how to change the culture within the institution, how to instigate more entrepreneurial thinking and acting within your institution if you are looking to engage more people in collaborative efforts. And in the end, also how to maintain, manage, and measure the success of such engagements. So these are the core topics that we are covering. And the main instrument that we utilize, because it is very important to hear what our attendees and participants are bringing to the table, we rely on highly interactive workshops as a main learning vehicle, because for us it's important to present our audience with a mix of both theory and practice, case studies, as I said, but also a number of interactive exercises and discussions, hoping to also instigate this peer learning experience for our participants as well, because obviously what we see being a global community as we are at UIN, it's very interesting then to observe how this knowledge flows from, you might be from the UK and then you are talking to a colleague from Hong Kong, for example. So just seeing how you can still face same challenges because you work in this field. And this is also something that we try to include quite heavily into our training sessions in a very interactive format. And I guess another very interesting element is the possibility for our participants to develop their personal application projects, because as they go through the training and they acquire certain skills and competencies and knowledge, they would also have a possibility to directly apply it to the work that they do day to day in their roles. Again, for example, you're a knowledge transfer professional and you're looking to develop a new concept on how you can connect certain types of academics from a specific department to an industry. And you have an opportunity to then basically develop your own strategy as you go through the program. And based upon the topic of personal application project that the participants will choose, what we do then is, again, relying on our global network of experts, we would match that participant to a mentor. So there is a possibility to engage in peer-to-peer learning through the workshops that UIN facilitates, but at the same time also to work one-on-one with the already seasoned professional that would have a similar focus in the work that they do, to then collectively work on the development of those personal application projects. So we truly do believe that application of knowledge as you go through the learning experience is very powerful learning tool that also directly benefits our participants as they bring those projects directly into their working life.
It's great to see that the already existing knowledge and skill set of participants is valued from the outset. I think that's also very important. One thing, we touched on challenges already, and I think the challenges are certainly known to those who try to do this work. I am curious, how can universities better support these people who do this kind of boundary spanning work?
If we talk about academics who are willing to collaborate, or actual academics who may not even know that they want to collaborate, but they need to collaborate and engage with external stakeholders, obviously there is a set of different supporting mechanisms that the universities may introduce. So this is why empowering spanning boundaries agents is important. Supporting professional development and skills development is certainly one of the ways to drive university business collaboration, just by providing the possibilities for learning and professional growth is certainly one way to go. But then recognizing the roles and celebrating the roles is also quite important. One thing that we know for sure is that connectedness and relatedness plays a very big role. So whenever there is a possibility to promote role models, whether it is a professional staff or you have very successful academics who are able to create impact from the work that they do, whether it is teaching or research, celebrating those role models is very helpful for other folks to see what is happening, what is possible. Also providing incentive systems. One of the biggest barriers for academics is, of course, the lack of time. They already have so much on their plate. When else they are going to collaborate? Just providing some small incentives, either providing a bit more time for collaboration per se by cutting the teaching or maybe adjusting a little bit the KPIs that they would need to show in terms of the research productivity that they are expected to have. And things like that would be some of the ways to go. But generally, having a more clear understanding and vision for what university would like to achieve in terms of setting and understanding the success of university business collaboration, I think is also quite important. Just by having not only a vision, but certain strategies in place is something that we see as helpful.
Valjean, I think you already touched on this earlier, actually, in terms of the concept of entrepreneurial universities and entrepreneurial mindset has gained so much traction in recent years. I'm wondering how you see boundary spanning agents contributing to fostering an entrepreneurial mindset in the wider university community.
I think they fit directly into the concept. What is happening is really, in order for the university to become entrepreneurial, there has to be a very comprehensive strategy and system in place when it comes to not only leadership and culture, but also embedding entrepreneurship pretty much across all the dimensions of work that the university would do: education, research, valorization, management. And that will not be possible without having spanning boundaries agents, both in the professional staff roles, the ones who would be working on development of entrepreneurship, whether it is an incubator, accelerator, or also having those leaders in place who have the vision for becoming an entrepreneurial universities and have the ability to, again, pave the way for the university being connected to their regions, local ecosystems, but also having those academics and students who would have this entrepreneurial mindset or spanning boundaries profile that are willing to step forward and just innovate in the way that they do their work, for researchers that are highly interested in valorizing their research. But for that, obviously, they would also have to have this set of skills that would help them break the silos and, I guess, make connections within the university, but also outside the university. Even can be applied to students, I think, talking about student entrepreneurship and just generally being engaged in different kinds of curricula and extracurricular activities that would go a little bit beyond traditional teaching and learning. So I think spanning boundaries as a concept is certainly very much connected to entrepreneurial thinking and acting.
Yeah, that connection to that wider ecosystem and that knowledge of the players involved is also so important. We touched on this earlier, but I'd love to pick your brain on it more. The nature that so many of these skills like empathy, openness, resilience, flexibility, these all seem very personal, innate traits, and yet the idea is to bring this to a professional setting. How do you see that play out in collaboration? How do you view that kind of almost juxtaposition?
That's a very interesting question, because this is what we've been puzzled by as well. There are opposing views, of course, because we've been also able to profile different types of spanning boundaries agents. But I think overwhelmingly, it's still very important to recognize that personal traits and characteristics and values still would have a certain commonality across different roles that we would observe in spanning boundaries field, so to say. Respect, honesty, openness, tolerance, approachability, reliability, sensitivity, and many other desirable qualities of a superhero is something that those experts and those spanning boundaries agents that we've been able to speak to, they would say they would need to have. But obviously, individuals are so different. And the thing is that, of course, it's impossible to have all those characteristics with one person. And this is where I think it's quite important to also be able to work with other individuals, because even though you may not possess all of them, there is a possibility to build teams and to rely on collaboration. It's almost like you're practicing what you preach. If, as a professional, your role is to drive external engagement and collaboration, you might as well utilize collaboration for the actual work that you do. But interpersonal attributes, they most certainly serve as a bridge. Often when we talk about partnering, we inevitably start talking about building trustful relationships, because again, we're all human beings. And even though we talk about inter-organizational relations, in the end of the day, we're building relationships between people. So building trust and fostering long-term collaborative engagements highly relies on interpersonal connections and interactions. This is why it's hard to deny the importance of personality traits.
That's a very hopeful note to end on, Valjean. Boundary spanning is certainly something that is being looked to as the future of education, future of how we do things. And if we consider silos to be the norm up until this point, Audre Lorde's, we cannot dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. I think that it's a very hopeful way forward. That is about us in terms of time. Valjean, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Madeline. My pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the discussion. Follow UIN on LinkedIn, and if you're enjoying our podcasts, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platform of choice to help others find this content too.